Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring something pretty remarkable, something called Tokenformer.
Tokenformer.
Yeah, it's got the potential to really shake up the world of AI, especially when we're talking about these giant language models like GPT.
Right.
The ones that seem to get more and more powerful every day.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, training these AI behemoths takes a ridiculous amount of computing power.
It does.
And as these models grow, well, that problem just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, you see, the traditional approach to scaling these models hasn't been very efficient at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, imagine if you wanted to, add a room to your house.
Okay, yeah.
But instead of just building an extension, you had to demolish the entire structure and rebuild it from scratch.
Oh, wow.
Just to add that extra room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what we're doing with models like GPT.
Really?
If you want to increase the size, you got to retrain the whole thing from the ground up, which is a crazy resource drain.
So that's where Tokenformer comes in.
Exactly.
It chucks that old playbook right out the window.
Right.
And proposes this radical new idea.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead of just processing words as tokens, the model's own inner workings, all those little bits and pieces, were also represented by tokens?
That's right.
It's like giving the model a built-in blueprint for growth. Right?
It is.
A way to evolve without needing a complete system reboot every time.
Exactly.
Wild.
So let's get into the technical nitty-gritty a little bit, if that's all right.
Please.
In a traditional GPT model, you have two main types of interactions happening.
Okay.
You've got, first, token interaction, where words in a sentence relate to each other,
Gotcha.
And then you've got token parameter interaction, where words are interacting with the model's internal parameters.
Okay, and remind me, what are those parameters again?
So the parameters, those are the values that determine how the model actually processes information, the nuts and bolts.
Right.
But here's where Tokenformer flips the script, see? It turns those parameters themselves into tokens.
Wait, so instead of being these fixed values, the parameters become what? Like dynamic, like little building blocks the model can rearrange.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
It is.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
And this is where the magic of token parameter attention, or pattention, comes into play.
Pattention, I love that.
Think of each parameter as a tool in a toolbox, right?
Okay.
Pattention helps the model pick the right tool for each task. It guides how it processes and understands information.
So the input tokens, those are like the questions, right?
Yeah, think of them as queries.
Queries.
And those parameter tokens are acting as keys and values. And the model's learning how to pick the best tools, the most relevant ones, for whatever input it gets.
Wow, so this is way more than just a little tweak.
It is.
This is like a total shift in how we think about these AI models.
Absolutely.
What are some of the actual benefits of this approach? Like, what does it do for us?
Okay, well, one of the biggest benefits, the most obvious one, is something called incremental scaling.
Oh.
So instead of retraining the entire model from scratch every time, Tokenformer can just add new parameter tokens as it needs to grow.
Oh, so it's like adding new neurons to a brain.
It's a great analogy.
The model can just, get smarter over time.
Exactly. The research paper actually gives this example of, a model starting out the size of GPT-3, right?
Okay.
And then gradually scaling all the way up to GPT-4 complexity just by adding these tokens.
That's mind-blowing.
It is pretty cool.
It's like it can build on its own intelligence.
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean we could see even more powerful AI becoming available way faster?
It does.
I mean, that's got to be huge for developers, for researchers, for everyone.
Absolutely. And it's not just about speed either. Tokenformer also has this incredible ability to reuse and adapt the knowledge that it's already learned.
Okay, explain that one.
Well, think about it. With traditional models, when you scale up and retrain, you're essentially throwing away all that training data, right?
Yeah.
All those insights, all the stuff the model has figured out, it's gone.
It's like starting from zero every time.
Exactly. But with Tokenformer, those existing parameter tokens, they're like little nuggets of knowledge, right? They get carried over and refined.
So it's not just about building bigger models. It's about building smarter models.
Exactly.
Models that can actually learn from their past experiences.
Exactly.
That is remarkable.
It is.
So what else? What other cool stuff can Tokenformer do?
Well, this leads to another really exciting benefit: adaptability across tasks.
Okay.
Because the model's parameters are these tokens, you can add specialized tokens for different types of data.
Okay.
So, for example, you could have parameter tokens for processing language, and then you can add parameter tokens for understanding images.
So you're saying a single Tokenformer model could handle a bunch of different tasks.
Yeah.
Things that normally require separate AIs.
Right.
So like one AI could write a poem, analyze stock market data, A&D create a painting.
You got it.
That is wild.
It is. It's like this idea of foundation models, these AR systems that have this broad base of knowledge that can then be adapted to specific domains as needed.
So it's like one AI to rule them all.
Well, not quite rule, but you get the idea.
Okay, this is getting really interesting.
Right.
Before we go too far down that road, though, the paper mentions that Tokenformer replaces the traditional multi-layer perceptron, or MLP, with another form of this token parameter attention.
It does.
Now, I gotta admit, MLPs are a little bit over my head.
Sure.
Can you break down what that means for us non-AI experts and why it's a big deal?
All right, think of the traditional MLP, right? Like this big, complicated machine with lots of moving parts.
Okay.
It's essential for processing information, but it can be quite resource-intensive and kind of clunky to work with.
Gotcha.
Tokenformer simplifies all that.
Now,
It uses the same elegant mechanism, that patention we were talking about, for everything.
Really?
So instead of relying on this separate MLP structure, it uses token parameter attention to handle those transformations.
So it's all about streamlining, making the model more efficient.
Exactly.
By using this one unified approach with patention.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
It is.
But I think we need to step back for a second and talk about why all of this matters.
Sure.
What does Tokenformer actually mean for the future of AI?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and why should our listeners care about this?
Well, for one thing, it has the potential to democratize access to really powerful AI.
Okay.
The cost of training and scaling these models could go way down.
Right.
So powerful AI could become accessible to a lot more people, not just these big corporations with tons of resources.
So we could see independent developers, small startups, research labs all over the world.
Exactly.
They could all get their hands on this technology.
And that could lead to a boom in innovation across all sorts of fields.
That's really exciting to think about.
It is.
And it's not just about access, right?
No.
There's the whole issue of sustainability, too.
Absolutely. The energy required to train these huge AI models is a major concern.
It is.
Tokenformer's efficiency could really address that by cutting down on the need for all this constant retraining.
That makes sense.
It fits right in with this push for more environmentally responsible AI development.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the flexibility we talked about.
Right.
Tokenformer's ability to adapt across all these different tasks could lead to some truly revolutionary stuff.
Absolutely.
But before we go there, let's take a second to recap what we've learned about Tokenformer so far. Welcome back to our deep dive on Tokenformer. We covered a lot of ground already, so let's quickly recap. We started by talking about this groundbreaking architecture that uses tokens to represent not just words, but also the model's own internal parameters.
Right. And that leads to some, pretty incredible benefits like incremental scaling, parameter reuse, and adaptation.
Right.
And even the ability to handle like multiple types of data.
Yeah, that's where that whole foundation model concept comes in.
Exactly.
It's crazy when you think about it. It's like the model has its own internal language.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get a bit more into the weeds here. Like, how does Tokenformer actually work on a practical level?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that it replaces the traditional multi-layer perceptron.
The MLP.
The MLP, right, with another form of token parameter attention.
Yes.
Can you walk us through that in a way that even I, someone who's not an AI expert, can understand?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Let's break it down. So in a standard GPT model, right, the MLP, you can think of it like a super complex calculator.
Okay.
It's a dense network of nodes that transforms information as it flows through the model, helps the model, extract meaning from the input. But it's pretty resource intensive.
Mm-hmm. So it's a crucial part of the learning process, but it's also kind of a resource hog.
Exactly. And that's where Tokenformer makes this really clever change.
Okay.
So instead of relying on that traditional MLP structure, it uses token parameter attention to handle those transformations.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the toolbox analogy with patention?
Right, where each parameter is like a tool, and patention helps the model select the right tool for the job.
Precisely.
Okay.
So you have your input tokens, right? Which are the words or the data that the model is processing, and they're acting as queries.
Okay.
They're like, what do I need to know about this information?
Right.
And instead of interacting with fixed parameters in an MLP, those queries, they interact with parameter tokens that are acting as keys and values.
Wait, so the model is basically paying attention to its own internal parameters.
Exactly.
Like as if they were just another part of the data it's processing.
Exactly. It's a wild concept, right?
It is.
This means that the whole process of information transformation is handled through this really elegant token parameter interaction without a separate MLP structure.
So it's all about streamlining the architecture.
Right.
Making it super efficient by using this unified approach with potential.
Exactly.
That's a pretty clever approach.
It is. And it's one of the main reasons this architecture is creating such a buzz in the AI community. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about model design, and it has the potential to unlock some really groundbreaking capabilities.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
Once you start to, break it down, it's like we're getting a glimpse into the mind of the AI.
Exactly.
Seeing how it connects the dots.
And that transparency is another benefit of this approach.
Right.
By representing everything as tokens, Tokenformer makes the model's inner workings much more understandable,
Which brings us back to the bigger picture. Why does all of this matter? What are the real-world implications of having a model that can scale and adapt so efficiently? We talked about things like accessibility and sustainability, but what about the actual applications? Like, how could this change things in different fields?
Well, imagine like a single Tokenformer model that can just seamlessly switch between different tasks,
Okay.
Learning and evolving as it goes. It's like having this Swiss Army knife of AI.
Okay.
One tool that can handle all sorts of challenges.
Give us some examples, like how could this play out in, say, healthcare or finance?
All right, so in healthcare, you could have a single Tokenformer model that analyzes medical images, processes patient records, and even assists with, diagnosis and treatment planning.
Wow.
And then in finance, it could analyze market trends, assess risk, and even provide personalized investment recommendations.
So the possibilities are basically endless.
The possibilities are pretty much endless. It's not just about incremental improvements. It's about fundamentally changing how we interact with and leverage AI. We're talking about a future where these incredibly versatile AI systems are integrated into, every part of our lives.
It's almost like we're witnessing the birth of a new kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
One that's more adaptable, more flexible, and more in tune with, the complexities of the world around us.
Precisely. And as we move towards this future, it's important to remember that, this technology is still in its early stages. There's a lot of research and development that needs to happen before we see, these kinds of applications becoming commonplace.
Right. And we need to be mindful of the potential challenges that come with creating these really powerful AI systems. But that's a conversation for our next segment.
Yes.
For now, let's delve into what this breakthrough could mean for the future of AI as a whole.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Tokenformer. We've talked about how this new architecture actually works, and we even peeked into some potential ways it could be used.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride through this world of tokens and parameters and attention.
Right, but now we're getting to the part where things get really interesting, maybe even a little philosophical. We're talking about the long-term implications of Tokenformer, the big, what if questions that keep AI researchers up at night.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about a future where AI might not be limited to just doing specific tasks anymore. What if we have these super versatile foundation models that can learn and adapt across, pretty much any area?
Like we're almost talking about creating a new kind of intelligence here.
Right.
One that's way more flexible and adaptable than anything we've seen before.
Exactly.
And that brings up a whole new set of responsibilities.
It does. We can't just get caught up in all the cool stuff it can do and ignore the potential challenges.
Right.
Building AI this powerful, it means we have to be really careful about how we design it, how we interact with it, and ultimately how we control it.
Earlier, we talked about it being like raising a digital child.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to think about it.
And just like with a child, we have to, Give it guidance, set some boundaries, make
Definitely.
sure this new intelligence develops into something that's beneficial for the world.
Exactly. And that means we need strong ethical guidelines for how we build and use these advanced systems. We have to be thinking about fairness, transparency, accountability, all of that every step of the way.
This is a challenge that goes way beyond just the technical side of
It
things.
does.
It needs researchers, developers, policymakers, even everyday people to all work together. This isn't just a conversation for the tech world. This is a conversation for everybody.
I agree. And it's a conversation we need to have now.
Right.
Before this technology gets so advanced
Yeah.
that it's hard to control, we have to be proactive, address those potential risks, but also, make sure we're using AI for good.
Because the potential benefits are huge, right?
They are.
I mean, think about what AI like this could do for healthcare, for education, for the environment.
Think about AI that can help doctors diagnose diseases earlier or personalize education for every student.
Right. Or help us fight climate change in new ways.
Exactly. That's the kind of future we should be working towards, a future where AI helps us solve some of our biggest problems.
It's a future that's incredibly exciting, but also a little scary.
It is.
So many possibilities, but also so many unknowns. But if we have these tough conversations now, if we're thoughtful about how we develop AI, then hopefully, we can navigate all this and make sure AI remains a force for good in the world.
I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Tokenformer. It's been an incredible journey, and I hope you've all learned something new and exciting.
The world of AI is changing fast, and it's important to stay informed about all of this. We've got a lot to look forward to and a lot to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world of cutting-edge technology.